friends, Shawn here with Manly Made Minute, and welcome back to another video with my Anthony's Papercraft designer series. And today's card, we're doing another holiday card. I'm doing a huge push with Anthony's Papercraft holiday sets right now. As if you've been watching my previous videos, Anthony's Papercraft is going out of business as of January 1st. So right now, if you use my designer team code SAPC10, you will get 20% off, not 10% off, through November 30th on all of his sets on his site. Everything will be 20% off with my code. So I'm pushing some of his holiday sets. Once they're gone, they're gone. And then we'll kind of focus on some other things that he may have left in inventory that I absolutely love. But today's card, I'm super excited to do this one. It's a cardinal. I absolutely love cardinals. If anybody knows the story of when you see a cardinal and when a cardinal comes to visit you, they're just very special birds. And I think they're very special to give over the holiday for that reason. And this stamp set is really nice. It's really, really nice. When you look at the stamp, you're like, oh, yeah, Once you stamp it and emboss it as I did today for our watercoloring technique, it's so nice. It is just so nice. I'm pairing it with the pine off of the Christmas foliage stamp, and just to intermix those two because I wanted a little border on my card. And so I've done some pre-work only because I have embossed this card, everything that needs embossing. I think at this point we all know how to emboss. I've used Versamark ink and embossed the pine around the edge in gold. I've embossed the cardinal in black. I debated to do red, but then I thought I want this red to pop off that paper, so I'm using black. That way all the proper shading on this, he's got the black around the face and the mask, so I don't have to worry about coloring those. It's already embossed for me. And then we're just going to assemble this in a very easy card. So let's head on down to my table cam and show you what we got. Now here's the cardinal stamp, and you can see I have embossed this already in just black embossing powder, and it stamps out really, really nice. And then I've used the pine, which is this one here, to create, it's a little shiny there, so to create my border going around. I wanted this to feel like he's in a tree, not just sitting on this branch. So I've done that in gold to give me a little bling for the holidays. Then we're going to layer this on just some red glitter cardstock. I believe I got this from Cardstock Warehouse. Don't quote me on that. I'm not totally sure. And give it some bling. So I got the red from the cardinal, red on that. No sentiment on this one. I'll show you the card once we get there. I've stamped my sentiment. Happy holidays. I did one, and then I did one blank with just the pine on the inside. So once I get this colored, we'll see what I want to do. All right, super easy watercoloring this evening. So I'm going to zoom in so you can kind of focus on what we're doing. And I'm going to do a little green on this pine. We're going to do a little brown on the branch itself. Then I'm going to just do two different shades of red on Mr. Cardinal. All right. So we're going to start with my branch and pine, and then we'll go to the cardinal. So I have got out my Deck the Halls Catherine Pooler ink. I'm going to use a little macchiato and a little cargo for my branch. We're just going to stamp on my glass mat and pick up from here. All right, I've got my little bit of water here just to mix with. I'm going to start with macchiato, my lighter brown, and then we're going to go into some cargo just for some little bit of extra shading. Cargo will come out somewhat dark, so just be forewarned on that. If you're using cargo, it does get a little darker than what you think it's going to when you look at this label on the front. So, and you can see it stamps out pretty darn dark. All right, all we're going to do is I'm going to pick up some water. I'm going to pull that water off my brush and lightly lay down a little bit of water. I'm not pooling it. I'm not puddling it. I'm just getting my paper wet. That's all I want to do. All right? I don't need this big puddle of water. And if you get too much, you can always pick a little bit of that water back up on a dry brush. So, all right, now I'm going to Pick up a little water, get this so I have a nice little palette of ink here. And now this is just kind of coloring in between the lines is all we're doing on this one, and laying down this color. Incredibly easy. There is not much thinking on this, to be honest. There's not much thinking on where you need to shade and not shade. And I've said this over and over and over and over and over again with Anthony's stamps, is if you look at the embossing on this, okay, let me get this other layer down here before I stop. If you look at all of the detail of all the shading that's built into these stamps, same with this branch, we've got the natural shading built in here. It doesn't get any easier with his stamps for anybody that's just starting out, that may want to try some watercolor, may want to try watercolor pencils or regular colored pencils and Gamsol. Shade where it's already built in on these stamps. It'll work. It just will work. Alright, now I'm going to pick up some of this cargo, but I'm going to pull it out and water it down because I don't want this too dark. Now I'm going to go around where this shading is, alright, and just add a little extra shading in and around what's already there for me, okay, just to give this branch some dimension. And I'm going up and below this shading that's already there, because I'm just going to use what the artistic value of is already here on this stamp. And that is it, okay? That is my branch. That is all the brown I'm going to need. So I'm actually going to wipe this up so I just don't get messy. Yes, anybody that watches me knows I get messy, knows I get it on my fingers, and I end up with a fingerprint at some point doing all this. Alright, if you know me, I like yellow in my leaves and my greenery. I'm not putting any yellow. I'm using Deck the Halls. It's more of a bluish green. It's a dark, deep forest bluish green. And I want to keep that bluish tinge, but I'm going to water this down a little bit and then layer to get some depth in here as I go. But keep in mind, I can deepen this as I layer this. So I'm going to pull this out and go pretty light here to start. This is super thin. If I go outside these lines, I'm not too crazy concerned about it. I'm just looking to get that green in and around this pine, okay? And I'm going to probably throw a little extra of the shading here at the base that's outside these lines to throw some green, extra green down. And I'm using a, I think this is a 00 brush. And I'm going to use the same brush for the whole thing, just because I don't have a ton of space to fill. You know, I don't have a ton of color to throw down. And now I'm starting to pick up some of the deeper tones along with these lighter tones, so I can just get a little variation in this as I go. Especially in where all this shading is. And let me just zoom in so you can kind of see. Let's get up close and personal here. Get that to focus. So I'm pulling in some of the watered down stuff and pulling in a little darker pieces, and then just brushing that through very lightly to get that touch of color. Now, in where all this shading is, go ahead and throw a little extra color right up in through there to throw up some green, because you're not going to have much greenery if you just stick to this little fine pieces of pine. This pine here, could I have stamped this in green and clear embossed it? I sure could have. I just like to have a little bling on these Christmas cards with stuff like this, so I decided to do a little gold kind of border on this one and make this just pop. Alright, now I'm going to go back through up here where I did it a little bit lighter, and I'm just going to throw down a little bit more of my darker. Now you can kind of see I am going outside these lines just a little bit and adding in a little extra flicks to get me some more in there. Do what you want on this one, to be honest. I just want a little extra green. So I'm going to go back through now. I'm just pulling up a little bit of darker green. You can see here in the corner of the screen. And then just kind of flicking that in. Just to throw a little bit down. Now I'm going to throw a little bit extra down in where that shading is, just to get me some green going on in there. And we're going to do the same on this last little branch. Alright? Get me some extra flicks going here with some deeper greens. Alright. I'm actually pretty happy with that. You know, it's sometimes hard to kind of think about with stamps like this. The lines are there for us. I gotta stay within the lines, but you know, the more we experiment and the more we just push ourselves, you're just gonna learn your limits and your preferences. And I just know I feel like I learn every time I make a card, so I feel like I'm always in that learning phase where I'm like, let's just try it. Never done it, let's just try it. And so I try to push myself a little bit every time I do a card like this, especially with wildlife like this. I am not a wildlife artist by no means, and so I love these because they have the shading in here for me, so that I can use these stamps to learn with before I maybe do something freehand, or maybe do something a little bit more open that doesn't have as much shading, and then I can add my own in there. Okay, now I'm using Rockin' Red and Cranberry Fizz by Catherine Pooler. A nice deeper cranberry and more of that Christmassy red. I'm going to lay down my Christmassy red here first. So I'm going to get a nice pool, dip in my water, and pool that up like a watercolor. Okay, now I'm going to go back through and I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to pull that water off of my brush. So I'm dipping it in, pulling that off because I don't want a big pool of it. And I'm just doing enough to get my card wet. Now when you do this, make sure you brush over all of this embossed shading so that you get it in between all these little crevices so that the ink will grab in there. Otherwise it's not going to grab, it's going to sit on the surface because of all of that embossing, and it could still stick out white. So just kind of, as you do it, just kind of push that in. You're like kind of pushing the brush in a little bit. All right, and I'm just going through all of this and adding my wet. Okay, now I'm going to go and put a lighter layer first. I want to layer up him because I want to make sure that I can get some depth going on him, so he's just not this, you know, Christmas red and call it a day, because they're usually not, right? So I'm just going in and I'm laying down, and you can see by getting that wet, you'll get some bloom on this color, and that's what we want. I just want this nice soft fill on this first layer. That's it. I'm going to keep that beak because we're probably going to throw a little yellow on there for his beak. Got a little green on there, but that's okay because look, as I add my red, it just gives me that some shading, so that's okay. And then just make sure you kind of get it in those crevices because this is still all of Mr. Cardinal here. Like so. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of this so I can get rid of some of that green and get more red into this little middle piece here. You know, and if you get a stamp like this where you're like, gosh, I just love the stamp, I just don't know how to do stuff like these, then start stamping and embossing some and just start playing. Use what you have. Like I'm using, I could use watercolored pencils. I could use Nouveau shimmer powder on this. I could use a pan set of watercolors. Use what you have and just start playing. You know, and you might surprise yourself because you might be like, oh, that turned out good. Well, I can make a card out of that one and not waste the paper, right? All right, I feel like I got a good, nice little wash. Now what I'd like to do is take and add some flecks all around where the shading is with this cranberry. And I don't want to water this down too much, but I might add 2 layers of this. So we're going to do one little wash over here, and I might pick up some more of this not so diluted pigment. Alright, now I'm just going to go through where I've got all of this natural shading. And if I've got these little dots, I'm just dotting this in. I'm not brushing, I'm dotting because I'm still getting some bloom. My paper's still wet, right? So I'm going to get a little expansion on this color as you lay that down. So I'm just dotting that in. So I get just some natural shading from my little guy here. Alright, I mentioned it at the beginning. If nobody knows, go ahead and Google it and correct me if I'm wrong. But if a cardinal comes and visits you, generally it just means that somebody in your past life has come to visit you and check up on you, make sure you're okay, say hi, let them know that they're with you and following you, and they see you and they hear you, and they come in the most random times in your life that you may feel things just aren't going your way. And I can tell you from personal experience that I have had these things show up just when I need them. And my backyard is full of these little puppies, right, all year long. And I just know that it's probably my partner's grandmother, it's probably my dad, just coming to visit us down here in the south since we moved here to make sure that we're okay and how we doing, and that's why I just feel this is so special. This card I am actually making for a dear friend of mine on Instagram who, if she's watching, she'll probably figure this out, but her mother was a bird watcher. We kind of connected through Instagram. I'm sorry, not Facebook. We connected through Instagram via some of our art and our watercoloring and her Copic coloring that I started following and liking, and we started chatting, and I had sent her a little thank you for sending me a gift. It was a watercolor of, colored pencil of a bird, and she just thought, there's reasons why we come across people in our lives. Her mother had passed. Her mother was a huge bird watcher. That's how she got started doing her Copic coloring and everything, and yeah, so this card is for her for Christmas. I feel like it's appropriate and she's going to appreciate it. Alright, I'm just taking water now with no color, dabbing out my hard lines just to get a softer shadow blend here. Look at this, you guys. All I'm doing is following this shadow and pulling it out just a little bit as it blooms and just naturally does what it wants to do. I'm leaving some of these little highlighted areas for my highlight shadows, right? And I'm just softening out with some very light water my hard lines to soften this back down so I don't get a hard line on some of this. And I am just extremely happy on how this is turning out. I'm going to add just a little bit more deeper stuff in through this just to give it a little bit more layer here on this edge. I'm picking up more ink than I am trying to pick up with water. And I'm just throwing a little extra right in around that shadowing. And you can see as I dab it how it just starts to bloom out just a little bit. Alright, let's just get a little bit down in here on the tail that I've missed. Lots of shadowing down here on the tail around all this pine, so I'm throwing some up against the pine, up against where that shadowing is. Alright, now I'm just going to take lightly watered down and dab some of that out. And I think I'm actually very happy with this. I want just a little dab right here to soften that little white piece out. I'm on Canson XL watercolor paper, by the way. There's two sides to this. There's a little rougher side and there's a smoother side. I did this on the rougher side. I like the texture. So I tend to go with the more textured side more often than not. Is it completely visible? No. But to the feel and to the touch, yes. And so I just like that textured side, I think, a little bit more usually than the smooth side. Either side, though, would work. And if you have your favorite watercolor paper, then by all means. This is just what I have and what I started practicing with and what I use right now until I experiment with more. All right, gonna just fill this in just a little bit. Got some white flecks in there that I want to make sure I get colored in. And get around my edges nice and tight up against there. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of yellow, but I want a little bit more of an orangey yellow. So I'm going to pull out, I had limoncello, 2 yellow. Limoncello, 2 yellow. So we're going to go Tiki Torch. And again, same thing. I don't need a ton because I'm just going to do this for the feet and the beak. So just get a little dab. And I'm not watering this down too much because I need this to just fill in for beak and feet. So I don't necessarily need this to be watered down. I'm just filling in his beak and his feet. That's it. Feet are pretty embossed, so you just got to push it into those little pieces just so that you get that little fleck of color in there for the feet. And that is all she wrote. I need a little bit of red right in through here on these little white pieces. Okay, let me just zoom in a little bit more so you can kind of see how this is feathered out, how I've shadowed, if I can get the right direction here. All right. This kind of gives you a little closer feel of just how I did some darker around these edges of all of my shadowing. I kind of did half the head a little bit darker and then the light on this side since I had the lighter here anyway. And then left the belly and the crest just a little bit lighter. That's where some of that light's going to be hitting kind of over here. And then just there. And you can see on the tail, I could probably feather that out just a tweak. To soften that down just a tiny bit. And there you go. And now you can kind of see where I went out of the lines here. But it works, right? I'm just adding some extra color onto the paper so it just kind of works. All right, let me zoom out. I'm going to sop this up. Sorry to waste, but we're going to sop it up so I don't get messy. And we just have to assemble, you guys. All right, like I said before, I've got my red glitter that I'm going to put this on so I get the red popping off that red from the Cardinal. And that was what you could do gold to match the pine. You could do shimmer gold, whatever you wanted. You could do green for Christmas. I just had this paper, have not used a ton of it, and I got a ton of it. So I'm using some of it up for Christmas this year because I've had it for a good, I think, 2 years now. All right, there we have that one. Now I had gotten this one ready with this little piece of pine from the Christmas foliage set, and then I had done this one that just had Happy Holidays in it. Since I didn't do a sentiment on the inside of this one, I'm going to go this one because I don't want to put a sentiment on this because I feel like that is just a piece of art on its own, and I don't want to ruin it. Now, speaking of piece of art, if you wanted to gift this to somebody for Christmas, and I have a video out there on this, go on my videos on my channel here, and you'll find it. And I'm trying to find my little pieces. Let's see if I can find them. Let's see. Okay, there. I could take some picture corners. Let's get some dark ones so you can kind of see them. Picture corners. Put this on here and put this on the card so that the person could take this out and gift them a matted frame so they could frame this after they get it, and that would be a great gift. I'm not going to do that for this card because I don't have a frame ready for it to gift, and I've already given this particular person a framed one. So we're going to just glue this one down. And this cardstock is, once this gets wet, it buckles a little bit, and this glitter is pretty hefty. So I'm going to glue this down and then put my heavy weight on this. And I've done my typical. I say this almost every video. My main matte layer is 5.5 by 4.25 minus 1/8 of an inch. I don't like my stuff to go straight to the edge of the card. I like just a tiny tweak of white around the edge for another little border, so I don't go all the way to the edge. It's just personal preference. So you can kind of see I've got a little white border on this. So that was 5.5 by 4.25 minus 1/8 of an inch. And then I believe this one was, let's see, I think I did on this one 5.25 by 4, if I remember right. Yes, 5.25 by 4. Stamped in Boston Black, and you've got your watercolor. So let's just kind of take one last little look here. Beautiful watercolor card with a little Happy Holidays, which is that sentiment is from the Christmas foliage set as well. Let me just show you these stamp sets one more time. If you use code SAPC10 at www.anthonyspapercraft.com, this is the Cardinal. I know there's some on there. They will be 20% off with my code through November 30th. And then this is the Christmas foliage set. This is where I got the sentiment from, and then these pine that goes around the edge. And these pair so well together. I think this is just a wonderful and beautiful card. So there you have it. Happy holidays, everyone. Head on out to Anthony's Papercraft. Give this guy some love as we close up his shop and get some his beautiful stamps in your hands. And thank you so much for hanging with me. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up and a comment. Would love to hear from you. Would love to hear if you like what I'm doing. Good comments, bad comments, I reply to them all. Anything that you can share would just be much appreciated. And I do reply. So thanks for hanging with me. And until next time, I'll see you then.